Nobody knew why Mom and Kem's food tasted so different. Nobody questioned why people abandoned their homes, their families, their dignity, just for one more plate. But when a dying man whispered a final warning about her secret ingredient, the town would learn that some cravings come at a terrible cost. Mom and Kem's food store stood at the heart of the bustling market, its aroma wrapping around the noses of passers-by like an invisible hand, pulling them closer. The scent was unlike anything they had ever experienced, rich, deep, and intoxicating. People abandoned their errands, their homes, and sometimes even their families just to get a taste of her steaming bowls of soup and perfectly cooked meals. The queue for Mom and Kem's food started forming before the sun had even stretched across the sky. By noon, the line snaked through the market, extending far beyond what the eyes could see. People didn't just come from the village, they traveled from neighboring towns and even from cities far away. The rich and poor, the young and old, they all stood together, waiting for a single taste of the magic that was her cooking. Men who once swore by their wives' meals now refused to eat anything but Mom and Kem's food. Sons ignored their mothers' home-cooked meals, and traders risked missing deals just to get a spot in line. Mom and Kem was not just a cook, she was an enigma. She worked tirelessly, but no one ever saw her buy ingredients in the market. While others fetched water from the village stream, she had her own mysterious source. She had no suppliers, yet her food never ran out. Every night, long after the market had closed and the world had gone to sleep, she embarked on a journey, one that no one was supposed to witness. She made her way through the dark, carrying a covered calabash in one hand and a lantern in the other. Her destination was a place no living person dared to visit at night, the town's mortuary. Behind closed doors, under the cover of darkness, she collected the bathwater used to cleanse the bodies of the dead. This was the secret ingredient that made her food irresistible, binding the spirits of the deceased to those who consumed it. The first time Mom and Kem had used the sacred water, she had done so in desperation. Her business had been failing, her debts piling up, and customers had started flocking to newer, trendier food stores. Then, an old woman had approached her with a whisper of ancient knowledge. "Cook with the water of the dead," she had said, "and they will never stop coming." Skeptical but desperate, Mom and Kem followed the instructions. She fetched the water from the mortuary and used it to prepare her soup. The next morning, the results were astounding. People who had once ignored her stall now fought for a place in line. Her fame spread like wildfire, and soon, she was the most sought-after cook in the region. Her wealth grew, and so did her influence, but with every meal she served, an invisible debt was being repaid, one she was not yet aware of. The effect of Mom and Kem's food was unlike anything seen before. Men who once prided themselves on their self-control became beggars at her store. Some fought like wild animals over the last portion, while others abandoned their businesses to sit and wait for her next batch. Husbands scolded their wives for serving food that tasted nothing like Mom and Kem's. Some even went days without eating at home, waiting for her to reopen. Soon, a hierarchy formed among her customers. Some paid extra just to be served fast, while others took it upon themselves to wash plates or clean tables in exchange for a guaranteed spot in line. There were whispers of men kneeling before Mom and Kem, begging for just a taste when the food ran out. As the months passed, the desperation grew worse. Some men started stealing from their wives just to afford another plate of Mom and Kem's food. Others sold their valuables to secure a place at her store. A young boy was caught sneaking into the market at night, hoping to lick the empty pot she had left behind. A wealthy trader, once the richest man in the village, lost everything. His obsession with Mom and Kem's meals had driven him to sell his house, his farmland, and even his last goat. Now homeless, he lived near her store, waiting for her to cook each day. The people whispered about his downfall, but deep inside, they feared they might be next. Not everyone was blind to the strangeness of Mom and Kem's success. A few people in the village began to question her sudden rise to fame. Market women who had been selling alongside her for years whispered among themselves, wondering how her food had become so addictive. A young girl, who had always loved eating at Mom and Kem's store, fell mysteriously ill. She complained of hearing whispers whenever she closed her eyes, voices of unknown people calling her name. Her mother, terrified, took her to the village priest, who immediately sensed something dark at play. One night, a man lay on his deathbed. He had been one of Momankem's most loyal customers, never missing a single meal. But as he gasped his final breaths, he called his wife close and whispered something chilling. "The food, the spirits. I see them." His wife, confused and afraid, begged him to explain, but he only shook his head. "Don't eat it anymore," he pleaded. "Please, don't." The village priest had always been wary of Momankem's sudden fortune, but he had no proof. When the sick girl's mother approached him, he knew he had to act. He decided to watch Momankem closely. One night, he followed her as she left the market, his heart pounding as he watched her enter the mortuary. What he saw next shook him to his core. Under the dim lantern light, Momankem knelt beside a lifeless body, chanting words he couldn't understand. She dipped her hands into a bucket of water, washing the corpse as if in a trance. Then, with steady hands, she scooped the water into her calabash and covered it tightly. The priest gasped, his breath catching in his throat. He had seen enough. The next morning, the priest stormed into the marketplace. He stood before Momankem's stall and shouted, "This food is cursed. The spirits of the dead cry from the pots." The crowd fell silent. Some looked horrified, others confused. Momankem, calm as ever, wiped her hands and smiled. "Father, you speak of spirits, but do you have proof?" she asked. The priest held up a vial of water he had taken from a calabash the night before. "Let the elders test it," he declared. The crowd murmured, torn between loyalty to their beloved cook and fear of the unknown. The elders gathered, whispering among themselves as they performed sacred rites on the vial of water. Moments later, their faces turned pale. One of them dropped the vial, shattering it on the ground. "This water, it carries the souls of the departed," one elder gasped. The market erupted in panic. People screamed, throwing their bowls of food aside. Some collapsed in shock, while others fled the scene. Momankem stood frozen, her calm demeanor breaking for the first time. The priest stepped forward. "You must atone for what you have done," he said. But Momankem, eyes darting wildly, turned and ran, disappearing into the narrow alleys of the village. The hunt for her had begun. The village erupted into chaos as men grabbed torches and sticks, determined to track down Momankem. Some were fueled by anger, others by fear. The once beloved food seller was now a haunted woman. Momankem ran through the winding paths of the village, her breath ragged, her heartbeat thundering in her chest. She knew the villagers would not stop until they had her. She needed to reach a place of safety, a place where the spirits she had fed for years could protect her. With nowhere else to go, Momankem dashed towards the old forest, where the forbidden shrine stood. It was a place feared by all, a sacred ground where only the most daring souls ventured. She knew the villagers would hesitate to follow her there. As she reached the shrine, she fell to her knees, calling upon the spirits she had served. "I have given you food, I have honored you. Now I ask for your protection." The wind howled, and the trees trembled. A deep, guttural voice echoed through the forest. "You have taken, but you have also betrayed," the voice rumbled. Momankem shivered, realizing too late that the spirits had been waiting for this moment. The air around the shrine thickened with an eerie glow. Shadows formed, their shapes resembling those who had once walked the earth but now lingered between worlds. They surrounded Momankem, their eyes hollow, their whispers sharp as blades. "You fed on the dead," one voice accused. "You made us slaves to your greed," another hissed. Momankem fell to the ground, trembling. "I only wanted to survive," she pleaded. The spirits murmured among themselves, and then the ground beneath her shifted. A cold sensation crept up her legs as an unseen force pulled her downward. She screamed, but the spirits remained unmoved. "Your debt must be paid," they declared as she sank into the earth. The villagers, who had hesitated at the edge of the forest, watched in horror as Momankem disappeared into the ground. The wind howled once more, then all fell silent. With Momankem gone, her food store stood abandoned. The market, once lively, became a place of unease. No one dared touch the remnant of her meals. Her once loyal customers now lived in fear, haunted by the whispers of the spirits they had unknowingly consumed. The priest and the elders gathered to perform cleansing rituals over the market, but deep down, they knew that some debts could never truly be erased. The spirits had taken their revenge, and the lesson was clear: some cravings come at too high a price. The Whispering Winds years passed, but the legend of Moman came and her enchanted pot never faded. Children grew up hearing the cautionary tale of the woman who fed spirits to the living. The market slowly returned to normal, but a lingering fear remained. Lessons from this story. This story carries several powerful moral and cultural lessons. 1. Greed comes at a cost. Momankem's insatiable desire for success led her to use dark and forbidden means to attract customers. While she gained wealth and fame, it ultimately led to her downfall. The story teaches that shortcuts to success, especially unethical ones, often have severe consequences. 2. Beware of blind obsession. The villagers became obsessed with Momankem's food, abandoning their families, homes, and responsibilities. This warns against the danger of addiction and blind loyalty, urging people to think critically rather than blindly follow trends or desires. 3. The supernatural has its own rules. Momankem believed she could manipulate the spiritual world without repercussions. However, dealing with supernatural forces requires respect and caution. The story highlights the importance of honoring traditions and avoiding forbidden practices. 4. Evil will always be exposed. Despite her success, Momankem's secret could not remain hidden forever. The story emphasizes that truth and justice will always prevail, no matter how long deceit lasts. Wrongdoings eventually come to light. 5. Respect for tradition and spiritual laws. The village elders and priests played a crucial role in restoring balance. Their knowledge and wisdom helped cleanse the village. This reinforces the idea that traditions, elders, and spiritual leaders hold valuable wisdom that should not be ignored. 6. Be careful what you consume. Food is sacred in many cultures, and the story warns people to be mindful of where their food comes from. It also serves as a metaphor for consuming any external influence, whether physical, mental, or spiritual, that could corrupt the soul. 7. Actions have consequences. Momankem thought she could escape the consequences of her actions, but in the end, the spirits demanded payment for her deeds. This teaches that every action, good or bad, has a consequence, and one must be ready to face them. Final thought. The Enchanted Pot is a cautionary tale about greed, deception, and the balance between the supernatural and the human world. It urges people to act with integrity, respect spiritual laws, and think critically before following trends or desires blindly. If you enjoyed the story, please like the video, subscribe for more thrilling African tales. Drop a comment and share.